So today we're going to be going over the second to last mission in this LASO campaign, the House of Reckoning. Well, let's get right into it. So this level is going to be broken up into a couple different sections. You have your two different training sections where you have to fight off waves of a bunch of different enemies, and then you're going to be fighting off two different bosses. Now, if you want to, if you have upgraded your grappling hook to have the grappling punch effect, you can skip this training sections. If you look up any other speedrunning guides, they'll be able to show you on how you can skip this. I, however, chose not to do that, and I'm just doing it the normal way. But if you have upgraded your grappling hook and that is something you're interested in, that is definitely an option you can do. But for now, we're just going to keep going as intended, and we're just going to wait until the dialogue here stops and the enemy waves start spawning in. And see, I'm just kind of chilling on the boxes near where I entered, and to my right, there'll be a group of enemies coming out, and there'll be one coming out on the opposite side of the room as well. And we're just going to start taking them out, again, doing our main strategy. You're going to use our sword and rocket launcher to try and weed off as many people as we can. Make sure anytime you're approaching grunts or elites, you make sure you're ready to sidestep if needed with the thruster, as they're going to be throwing lots of grenades, and there's going to be lots of different enemies. So that is something you're definitely going to be needing to watch out for, especially in the second training room. Grenades are going to be one of the hardest things you're going to have to deal with in this level, and that's just something you're going to have to get used to in this. Now, other than that, you're just going to be picking off most of the enemies. I usually like to try and save the elites if I can for last, as trying to get into a sword fight with the elites while having other people shoot at me is a little tough. But after you finish clearing off that enemy on the opposite side of the room, there's going to be more enemies spawning, mostly jackals and grunts. And after the jackals and grunts, there's going to be a couple brutes that'll spawn as well, once you're done clearing out these people. We're just going to chase everyone down. Usually you can sometimes kill grunts in one hit, but usually it'll be about two. And you'll just finish off each room systematically, just dashing around, making sure you're going into cover when you need to if your shields are a little bit low. That way you can make sure you use your active camo, make sure that you can sneak up on someone in case you need to get your shields back and you don't want to risk getting shot anymore. But we're just going to make sure we pick off the last couple people here. Grab this grunt and jackal back here. We're just going to finish off. And we should be done with this wave of enemies. And the next wave of enemies is going to be a couple more brutes and some other jackals and a couple other miscellaneous enemies here and there. And we're just going to walk on. The grunts will like to use the turrets when available, so that's something you need to watch out for. If the grunts will go up to that turret, you don't want to just charge right at him, as he's going to start lighting you up, and that's not something you're going to want to have to deal with, as they will do quite a bit of damage. So if it is on the turret, I recommend, if you're not close enough to be able to just dash right up there and make it, throw your dynamo grenade. That way you can stun them, and it'll buy you a little bit more time to either pull out your rocket launcher and shoot him that way and destroy the turret, or if you're close enough, you can pull out your sword and just dash to him while he's stunned. Not too much I can really say about specific strategies, like I can't tell you to go left at this exact point or anything along those lines. It's mostly play it by ear, and you have to be able to react, but usually when you're just walking with these active camo, you shouldn't have too much trouble dealing with most of the enemies, as you're going to be getting your shields back consistently, and you're going to be killing enemies pretty quickly with the sword. Usually only 2 to 3 hits for a majority of the enemies. Some of the shielded brutes and elites, they take 4 or 5, but on average just 2 or 3 will usually kill most people. Now, you're not going to have to worry about it in this section here, but in the next training section, when we're killing the brutes, you actually are going to want to pick up the skewers that they sometimes drop. And it is optional if you want to pick it up here, as you can manage to do it without, in the next training section, without your rocket launcher, but I recommend keeping the rocket launcher for the first part of the next training section. So just something to keep in mind, that when the brutes start spawning in the next training section, you want to pick up their skewer. And that's just going to make it easier for the hunters later on. Now, sometimes these enemies, with how much cover there is, they get a little bit lost, and they have a little bit trouble finding you with the active camo, so that's just something to keep in mind.
I think that's it.
But once you're done with that wave, we're going to make our way to the door on the opposite side of the room that we came into. And we're just going to make our way up the elevator shaft. Now normally when you go into the elevator you can just ride it up, but I personally just like to zip line my way up there, grapple hook my way up, because I like to. It's fun. There's not really too much else to say about that. Now the second training room section is going to be a lot more difficult than the first one, as there's going to be hunters and a lot more enemies spawning per wave on average. So there's going to be a lot more stuff going on, and the hunters are just going to make everything a lot harder than it needs to be. However, luckily there's going to be a skewer available to us, unlike other times where we had to fight hunters throughout this playlist. So that's going to make it a little bit easier for us. Now one more thing you want to keep watch for in this section here is that grunts are a lot more dangerous, as they all will start going suicidal and pull out the double grenades when you get close to them. Especially in the second wave of grunts that will generally start spawning out. Now if you're quick enough and you have plenty of time to do this, I would recommend going to one of the doors on the far side of the room from where you entered as the enemies start coming out the door, and just use your rocket launcher, maybe throw some dynamos out there. That way you can clear out a majority of them in just a couple hits, as your rocket launcher and dynamos should be able to kill pretty much the whole room. If not, just keep throwing a couple more dynamos and you'll finish them off that way. But that way you can clear out one whole room, and that way you only have to deal with the other room getting spread out and situated throughout the room. Now we're going to be going through a couple more waves of this same type of situation, so you're just going to treat it as if it was the first training room. The only thing, like I said, just keep watch out for the grunts, as you don't want to get too close to them. If you are going to get close to them, make sure you throw a dynamo and stun them first. That way you have the opportunity to actually go and melee them. Now there's also going to be a lot of berserker brutes that are going to be rushing down, so you want to really make sure that you're giving yourself a lot of clearance and using your dynamos. That way they're not going to all just rush you down, as they do a lot of damage, and they will always see you even when you're in active camo. So there's no hiding from them, there's only either outrunning them or killing them. Now after you finish taking out those brutes, there's going to be a couple more. You see, I kind of forgot about the other side, so there's a couple more shooting at me with the skewers here. Now at this point I recommend, after you finish taking out these brutes, is when you pick up the skewer. However, I kind of wasted a lot more time, so once I'm done clearing out most of the enemies that aren't the hunters in this wave, I'm gonna skip ahead in the video a little bit. But as you can see in these waves, later waves of the grunts, all of those grunts have been pulling out their double grenades and just suicide charging you. That's what you really want to be careful for. You do not want to get close to those grunts, and I cannot stress that enough, as since our main strategy is going in with a sword against them, it can be a little bit more difficult and tricky to deal with them. However, just keep throwing your dynamos. It's super important to use your dynamos in order to stun them. You can pull out your rocket launcher and shoot them that way and make sure you kill them like that. But be warned, if they already pulled out their grenades and you stun them with the dynamos, even if you get close enough to try and sword them, they will still instantly blow up the moment you get close to them, and you will die. There is no surviving those suicide grunts. That will instantly kill you. So we're just going to save the hunters for last, like a usual type of strategy, like we did with the last couple hunter packs that we've had to deal with. And we're just going to kind of throw them around a little bit if we can, maybe do a little extra damage, maybe speed that process up a little bit. Now I left one jackal alive, but I'm going to go ahead and just skip ahead anyway. You can just finish him, killing him off that way. But like I said, I wasted a little bit of time, so I just cut ahead here, and I'm grabbing the skewer. The reason why I'm grabbing the skewer is because it is very effective against hunters, as no matter where you shoot them, they will do a lot of damage. So we're just going to shoot one of the hunters, and then we're going to immediately back off. We're going to back off, give ourselves some time to reload, as it takes kind of a while to reload this weapon, and then we're going to pop back in and pop another shot off on the hunter. And we're just going to be taking this strategy throughout the entire fight, and in all honesty, you should probably not be taking hardly any damage here, so long as you're not getting a little too ballsy and just running into the hunters. And so long as you keep your distance and you make sure you're reloaded, you pop out, shoot, pop back into cover, you should be good to go without taking any damage, and you should be able to take care of these hunters easy peasy. Now, one more little tip, as you can see on that last shot I did on the hunter, is he was actually facing away from me. So if you do have the opportunity and the back armor is broken on the hunter, you can do quite a bit of extra damage by shooting their weak point, and it'll do an absurd amount of damage to the hunters, especially with the skewer. So you can save yourself quite a lot of time. Now, the main thing in trouble here is just trying to find the hunters, but you can see I've already killed one of the hunters here, as most of the time that I wasted before cutting the video, I didn't really damage the hunters too much. So these are mostly full health hunters. I did shoot a couple rockets at them, but you can see even still I was able to kill that hunter pretty quickly with the skewer, so it does quite a lot of damage. Now, this hunter really wanted to go up top here, so I have to kind of wait for him to wander around so I don't get too close to him in order to see him. I'm going to take another shot at him, and he's already dead too. See how easy it is with these skewers? They do so much damage, you just don't have to worry about it. Now, after you're done with those hunters, you're just going to trade out our skewer with one of the other rocket launchers in the back there, and we're just going to make our way to the next section. And the next section is going to be a boss fight, and trust me, it may seem like it would be hard on LASO, but it's actually pretty easy, and I wouldn't worry yourself too much. It might take a couple tries just to get down the movements you're going to have to do for it, but in general it's not going to be too bad. So the main strategy we're going to be using for the Blade Master is we're going to immediately get out of the way as soon as the boss fight starts, first off, because he will immediately rush and hit you. Now, my favorite spot to go into is this bottom corner here, right next to the stairwell, and we're going to use our motion sensor ability in order to find out where the boss is. And then we're going to try and stun him as much as possible with the dynamo grenades, and we're going to hit him with the sword a couple times, depending on how much time you have. Now, one of my favorite things to do here is, since we're just sitting in this corner using the motion sensor, you can grab those explosive canisters and throw them at him. But once you're out of that, or you can save them for later, it doesn't necessarily matter when you do it. You're just going to be using your sword and taking advantage of the fact that you're getting him stunned with the dynamo grenades and hitting him with that. Now, the nice thing about these explosion canisters is they generally do enough damage to the boss, especially if you get a direct hit, that it'll trigger him to want to go back invisible and do like one of those resets that he likes to do. So once he comes back into view, we're just going to throw one at him, and he's just going to disappear again. Now, I still recommend that sometimes he doesn't immediately disappear, so immediately follow up with a dynamo grenade. That way, if you need to, he'll still be available for you to stun him. Just like how he did here. Like, it didn't quite finish him off to make sure he wanted to go back. So we're just going to use our dynamo and stun him that way. Now, the other main part of this strategy is how you can see I was dashing away from him a little bit. So if we aren't able to get him stunned and he's going to try and lunge at us, we're going to essentially just kind of slowly walk until he starts reeling his sword back, and that's his visual cue that he's going to strike. Now, once you see that visual cue, we're just going to kind of let him swing, and as soon as he starts, we're going to immediately move backwards and use our thruster ability. So every time that he's into view, you want to make sure that you're switching to your thrusters before he gets close to you. So every time he pops into view, throw a dynamo, try and get him a couple hits, but now that he's rushing at us, as soon as he starts to do his sword strikes, we're going to dash back with our thrusters. That way he misses us. And that'll give us an opportunity in between his sword strikes for us to actually hit him with our sword ourselves. And that's basically going to be the boss fight. It's not too bad of a fight. Like I said, you just get a couple hits every time you stun him with the dynamo. And again, we're just letting him try and hit us, and we're dashing back. So you can see how he missed us with that sword attack. And he's going to do the same thing here, except he decided to reset. And we're just going to make our way back to this corner. And the reason why I like going in the corner is because it's easy to see where he's coming from. If you're out in the open, he can come from any direction. Now I personally like to, after I finish killing the boss, get his sword. A, because it's a cool red color, and although you're not going to be able to see it with the blind skull on, the visual effect after killing enemies is like that hard light dissolve effect after you kill someone. And I personally find that pretty cool. So I'm going to trade it out here. But as far as I'm aware, I'm not sure. I couldn't find any confirmation if the sword has any extra stats to it. But if it does, and it's better, all the better. But if it doesn't, it's just a cool effect that you can choose to have.
I'm getting a read on Echo 216. He's right above us. There he is. We need to get him out of that thing.
So now we're on Eshrim, and Eshrim itself also isn't that bad of a boss fight. And just like the Blade Master, first thing you want to do, get out of the way. You want to get out of the way, and we're going to be hugging these corners as tight as possible and staying out of line of sight of the boss. Reason why we're doing that is because we're taking advantage of our rocket launcher and our boom and cowbell skull. And we're just going to treat it kind of like how we did with the first boss of the LASO mission, Tremonius. And we're just going to be launching eshrim with the rocket launchers, because every time you hit him with the rocket launcher, he'll get sent flying back pretty far. So we're just going to be hiding around the corner, using our motion sensor to see when he's close enough for us to hit him with it. And we're just going to shoot the rocket launcher close to the ground where eshrim is to send him flying away. That'll make it so during the phases where he doesn't have his shield up, he won't be able to hit us, which is pretty nice. Now, in between those phases, we're going to have to destroy these fusion cores in order to break his shield. Now, every time you break his shield, if you happen to have lost shields of your own, he's stunned for a little bit, and you can use that opportunity to pull out your sword and hit him yourself. But if you haven't lost your shield, just position yourself to be in a good spot to use your motion sensor and be behind a wall, so that way you can get ready to shoot your rocket launcher as he's getting close. So as you can see, as he was approaching that corner and he was approaching in my line of sight, shoot a rocket, it'll launch him pretty far away and you don't have to worry about him hitting you back. So you shouldn't be taking too much damage on this boss fight. In all honesty, this boss fight's a lot easier than it should have been for being a LASO boss fight. But we're just going to be rinsing and repeating this strategy. The hardest part of this fight is just trying to destroy the fusion cores in order to break his shield. See, this one really didn't want to get destroyed for a bit. Now that we finally destroyed that one again, the second one, we're just going to be doing the exact same thing. You can see I'm just making sure I'm always aware of where he is at all times in this fight. And I'm just shooting my rocket launcher and making sure that he doesn't get close to me. Usually it only takes a couple rocket hits for him to need to get his shield back. And he'll always make his way directly to the center of the room and to recharge his shields. Now most of them you can actually kind of hit from the side too, so even that one I got a little bit better shot than the previous fusion core was, and I was able to destroy it right away. So don't have to worry too much about them, just so long as you use your rocket launcher and you have decent aim with where you're hitting on the fusion cores, you should be able to destroy them in 1 to 2 hits. Like I said, as you can see, he's just being sent flying over and over and over again with these rocket launchers, so he's not even getting close to me. He's not even having an opportunity to even shoot back at me. So this entire time, from the last shield phase to this shield phase, he did no damage to me. Now the last little shield core that we're going to have to destroy, I recommend doing a couple extra steps beforehand, as it'll set us up for the next phase of the fight where he pulls out the gravity hammer. You can see I'm trying to destroy it from over here, but it's not quite working, and it's a good thing that it's not working because I would have messed it up a little bit for myself. As you kind of want the boss to be over right next to where it is before you destroy it. And the reason for that is because as soon as it's destroyed, we're going to make our way back to the pilot's little prison area, and we're going to hop on top of this little lip right on the side here. And the reason why we wanted the boss to be on the opposite side of the room is because it gives us plenty of room to get here without him being able to be right next to us. because just like Bassius in Excavation Site, he can't hit us when we're on top of this thing. So we don't want him to be right next to us, because if he is already right next to us, he actually can hit us. And that's going to be bad because he'll just one-shot you with the gravity hammer. So that's going to be a bad time. So long as you have yourself plenty of clearance and you're able to get onto this lip, you can just lob rockets at him over and over again. He's not going to be able to do anything to fight back. And this boss fight, this phase of the boss fight, will be super easy and you just don't have to worry about it. So as you can see, didn't do anything, literally just ran over, went on the lip, and we're done. And with that, we're done with House of Reckoning, and we'll only have one more mission to go before we're done with our Halo playlist. And we're almost done, we're almost there, final stretch. Thank you everyone for watching. If you found this helpful, you can check out the rest of my Halo Infinite LASO playlists for my previous guides, and stay tuned for the upcoming LASO guides as well. As always, I'd appreciate any feedback to help improve my future guides, as I will be updating all of these LASO guides as more tips and tricks come out. And until next time, see ya!